guys, so this video is gonna be my September what I read or September wrap-up, depending on if you watch other booktubers. So this month I only read 4 books, but I did start a 5th that's pretty hefty, so I'm gonna sort of say 5 books. But overall, the first book that I read this month was This Modern Love by Will Derbyshire, and it was a really cool read. It was an interesting short read. It's basically a book that is a bunch of people's different romance stories put into a book collectively. So it's about like the beginning when you have a crush on someone, it's about the, interim of the relationship when you're in a relationship, and then it's about breakup. So it had a lot of these different stories from all these different people, and it's supposed to be authentic. And so it was a good read. It took me about maybe 3 hours to read the whole book, and it's like 400 pages. It's got, quick little summaries, longer summaries, and then it's got these words that represent different things, and then it's got pictures. So it's got a lot of variety, and I really did like it for a change, because I kind of always read the same thing. I don't like contemporary novels, so for the most part, I only read the fantasy, sci-fi, dystopian, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a nice change. It was a quick read. I did enjoy it, but what I felt with it was that I think this is just my problem, to be honest with you, because I was going into the book thinking it was going to be something that it wasn't. Since it was, these love notes sent by real people, a lot of them were really like disorganized and kind of crappy to read and, not very enjoyable, lyrically in the writing. I was kind of expecting poetry, is basically what I'm trying to say, and it wasn't at all poetry. It was a lot of stuff that looked like it was written by like maybe a 14-year-old, which is totally fine because it probably was, and that's basically what the book was supposed to be. So I think the fact that I didn't like the fact that it wasn't poetry is literally just my problem, and that I interpreted the book as being something else. So for that, I gave it a 4 out of 5 just because I found some of it to be dragging, some of it hard to get through. But then, of course, that's how it's going to be if you have real people saying their real stories. So, I can't really fault the book too much, but I did still give it 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I read this month, I actually have physically, and it is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. And I'm not going to go too much into this because I did do a review, so I'm going to post the review in the description box. But overall, I really liked this book. I thought it was a good addition to the series. And overall, I liked the development of the characters, the new ones, the old ones. I liked their interplay together, and the more development of this world, as well as just like the new things that are happening to these characters. So I really did like it for that. My downfalls with this book is that it felt like a middle book, because it is. It's supposed to be the second book in either a 3 or 4 book series, and it really felt like that. It was kind of open start, open end, and overall I did find that to be a little bit annoying. It was kind of slow as well, kind of hard to get through for a while, but the last 150 pages were very, very, very good, and I did like the way this book wrapped up. So because of that, I did give it 4.5 out of 5 stars, but I gave An Ember in the Ashes 5 out of 5. So this one was a bit of a downgrade for me, but not that much. If you like the first one, you're gonna like this one, and you're gonna want to continue the series. So that is the second book I read this month. The third book that I read this month was a novella. It was Garnets Story by Amy Ewing, which is a sort of companion book to The Jewel. And I find this series to be sort of like a guilty pleasure series for me. I don't think it's particularly bad, so when I say guilty pleasure, I don't mean it because they're like bad books. I just mean it in the sense that they're sort of like mindless fluff reads, but I really like them. They're usually pretty short, like 300 pages or so, and you can fly through. So I've developed kind of a love for this series, and when she came out with this novella, I was like, oh yeah, I'll definitely read that just to see, because I like Garnet as a character. He's kind of a spoiled aristocrat, pretty boy character, and I wanted to see his growth through his eyes. And overall, it was very good for that. I think I gave it 4 to 5 stars on Goodreads. It was, a well-paced book, and it definitely coincided perfectly with The Jewel, and it made a lot of sense, and it was just cool to see that other side, that perspective of a male character when you get the main book is from a female's point of view. So I did really enjoy that. If you like the series, I would highly recommend that novella. It was one of the better novellas I've read from these series. And if you like the series, I think it was definitely a good companion, but I don't really see the point in reading it if you don't already like the series. So that's my thoughts on that one. It was a good quick read, but, you know, kind of a specific type of book, I think. And then the last book that I read this month was The 100, and I forget the author's name. I'll put it on the screen, but I forget her name right now. And I only read it, it's kind of a weird thing, I had it on my iPad, I had it saved on my iPad, which is where sometimes I'll read books that I don't really want a physical copy, or maybe the physical copy seems too expensive, sometimes I'll buy it on my iPad. And so I've had that book on there for a long time. And I was kind of in a slump, not really in a slump, but sort of like it comes from reading this book, okay? So I started A Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, and it's huge. It's like 1,100 pages long. See, this is like 120 pages in, but it looks like I've read none. And this book is so good, and the story is so vast, but I feel like sometimes it takes it out of me. Like, it takes energy to read this book, because you read like 20 pages, and then you look, and it's like, oh my god, I've got so much. So essentially, reading this put me into a mild reading slump, where I was like, I just need something quick, something easy, something mindless, and so that's why I turned to The 100. I had seen mixed reviews about it, so I wasn't thinking it was gonna be the most amazing book in the world, and I was right. It's an interesting concept, because the book is essentially about these characters that go to Earth. They're convicts on this spaceship in the Earth. They're convicts in a spaceship that's in space because the Earth had a cataclysm, something happened, so the Earth was uninhabitable, and then everybody went to live in space. And so when there's not enough, like, resources to support the population on the space station, so when people are convicted of crimes, they get executed or various things happen to them. So whatever. Anyway, there's these convicts, like 100 of them, that are under the age of 18, that are chosen to be sent to Earth. And they're supposed to go to see if Earth is now going to be fine for people to live on so they can come back to Earth, because they're running out of resources on the space station. That's it. That's basically all that happens. They send the people to Earth. One of the chicks that was supposed to go doesn't go, and you get a whole bunch of romance with her. And all the people on Earth kind of have some issues. My problem with this book is it had some major plot holes. Major plot holes. Like, they go to Earth and then all of a sudden there's 100 of them there. You only ever hear from like 8 of them. And then, you know, there's 100 of them, only one guy's getting food. It's like, they're all gonna die. Like, there's not enough food to support them if only one guy's hunting. And, you know, it just felt really, like, lopsided. It felt like the story of 8 people that get sent to Earth, not 100. So I don't know why there was 100, considering that we only ever get the perspective from these few people. As well, not a lot happens in the book. Really, not a lot happens. There's, like, little conflicts, but it almost feels like there's not a climax and a conclusion and whatever. What I did really like about this book, though, is that even though it was character-driven, these characters are pretty interesting. It's basically told from the perspective of 2 dudes and 2 girls, and overall, I found those characters to be pretty compelling. And the nice thing is you get these snippets of backstory in each one of their chapters, and those are always really interesting. Like, I really like to read about the backstory. And so it made me think that going forward, this series probably is pretty interesting, but I looked at the reviews on Goodreads, and I don't think you should always do this, but for this series, they don't really seem to get much better. So I'm gonna discontinue the series. I'm gonna watch the show. I hope that it is better than the books, because it wasn't awful, but it left me a lot to be desired, and I feel like I'm never gonna get what I want from these books. So overall, The 100, I think I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 or a 3. It wasn't awful, it was entertaining for what it was, but it kind of makes me feel crap that I started one book and I don't want to continue the series, because normally the whole purpose of me reading the first book is to read the whole series. So yeah, that's kind of my feeling on that. And overall this month, I feel like the reading was a little crap, but it's because I just started school, and I have a lot of reading to do for school, such as textbooks, not anything fun. And so I've kind of been, lacking in my desire to read more, but I'm hoping that in October I can speed it up, get some really good books in there, because 3 books that I really, really want to read come out in October. So yeah, hopefully the next time we'll have some better books to talk about. And yeah, I'm going to continue with A Wise Man's Fear. Hopefully I can get through some more of it, do a review, but I don't even know if I'm going to finish this by Christmas, to be honest with you guys. Because every time I read it, I read like 20 pages at once. I'm not really the type to read like 100 pages in one go. So yeah, it's a really, really good book, but it's just very, very thick. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any suggestions for me in the future, please do let me know. And until next time, bye! So just before we start, I want to quickly apologize about my appearance. I wanted to wait until my hair was dry to film this video, but I can't really wait